something that confused me. We had Cliffe and Stuart Connectley on the podcast, and I asked them about evolution, right? And they were like, yes, scientific evolution, yeah.
Do Stuart and Cliffe actually hold to the scientific teaching of evolution? Well, in today's video, we're actually going to take a deeper look at this, because once this statement was made by Logan, Stuart and Cliffe got some very heavy fire from the Christian community. And so we need to peel back the layers and see what was actually said. Are they confirming the scientific teaching of evolution, or are they saying something different? And so with that, guys, let's get some context with all of this and see how this conversation led to Logan making this statement.
Well, I'm a little confused how like sometimes with certain sects of religion, sects SECTS, can't agree on their own like teachings, like something.
Now, I want to stop real quick and address what Logan is saying here. Now, we clearly see Logan is tiptoeing around this topic. He is being very careful with the language that he is using, because Logan has faced some heavy backlash for snapping back at the Christian community, specifically when he had that issue with George Janko and the things he was saying to him, and then the seemingly wrath that he was facing from the Lord in his personal life after saying these things. The reason why we have different denominations, Lutheran, we have Presbyterian, we have Baptist, we have non-denominational, there's Pentecostal, etc. The list goes on. And really it comes down to not agreeing on certain things that the scriptures may teach. Now, the biggest thing we need to be reminded of is we as Christians, as Protestants, guys, we can disagree on secondary issues, but we need to agree on the primary salvific issues. Those things are non-negotiable. It's been said like this, guys. The Bible is clear that some things are worth fighting for. Truth, by definition, is separate from falsehood. We are to take a stand against false teachers and contend for the faith that was once for all entrusted to God's holy people. Issues that introduce another gospel, a message of salvation other than what the Bible teaches, must be denounced. Revelations, writings, or opinions that are presented as infallible or on par with the Bible must be rejected as heresy. We are also to destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. We do not compromise God's word or water down the gospel. If it is a matter of salvation or holy living, we should take a strong stand. Other matters may be handled differently. In 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 4, it instructs Christians not to devote themselves to myths and endless genetics, such as these prompt conversational speculations, rather than advancing God's work, which is by faith. So, the Bible gives us some guidelines about what is worth debating and what is better left alone. And so, guys, that's the key. There are things we can agree on and things we can disagree on. But as long as we agree on the primary salvific issues, we can link arm in arm. And so that's why there are so many different denominations. Sadly, yes, Christians, Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, name it, can't seem to agree on certain things. But once we start disagreeing on what the Bible teaches on salvation, salvific issues, that's when the issues come. Now, let's let Logan continue to flesh this out.
Confused me. We had Cliffe and Stuart Connectley on the podcast, and I asked them about evolution, right? And they were like, yes, scientific evolution, yeah. And when they said that, I was actually surprised, because most Christians I know seem to not believe in evolution, and these guys who are like really knowledgeable and like devout, good dudes who practice their craft and are the best at it, said the opposite of what I thought like traditional belief was. These are two guys that are revered by Christians and Catholics. I don't want to mess up which is which and the denominations that look up to them, but they posted the clip on their Instagram as well as saying it on the podcast. And when I saw it, I was surprised, because they were speaking directly to an audience that a lot of them don't agree with their opinion. And sure enough, in the comments, people reaming them for saying that evolution is a thing. And
now let's get the context to all this and see what Stuart and Cliffe actually said about this. Because we need to keep in mind, there are a few different teachings about evolution. There's about 3 different teachings about evolution. There's one that's biblical and others that are not. So which one do Cliffe and Stuart hold to?
you believe in evolution. You say you believe in evolution.
Yeah.
But isn't the Bible kind of anti-evolution?
No.
Why do a subset of Christians vehemently deny evolution and the theory of evolution?
Because they have a very tough time with the age of the earth. So they'll say it's 6,000 years old. And so they'll really, really push back against a lot of scientific theory.
Okay.
And they are scared of the term evolution oftentimes because they directly connect it with naturalism, where you're going to have to say there is no God. And what's so interesting about evolution, if there is no God, then you just go back to, we came from a primordial soup. That's what they believe. That's what I read in the great state of Connecticut public schools. Everyone in middle school says we came from a primordial soup. Well, there is no evidence for that at all. So how scary is that? Christians always get pegged for the ones, brainwashing their kids with all sorts of different types of doctrine. I think our culture today, secular culture today, is brainwashing kids with the primordial soup. And so from my perspective, no, there has to be a God, and that God created us in such a way where we are made in his image, we have value, but we have sin, and evil comes into play when you have sin. And so when you have something like evolution, you look at a bug landing on a frog, slowly sucking its brains out. And if we're simply created from the naturalistic perspective where there is no God, that should be normal for us. Like, okay, what's wrong with that? It's just part of evolution. And so for me, adaptation is not in any way contradictory to what the Bible talks about.
Now, see, there's a clear distinction here about evolution and what Stuart is actually talking about here. He's not holding to the scientific teaching of evolution where it says humans came from apes, where dinosaurs transformed into birds. No, we're not holding to that as Christians, but what we will say, and we'll say this does happen, is adaptation. Animals will adapt to where they are at. And so animals over time will get thicker fur if they're in colder weather, or their beaks will change when it comes to certain foods that they're going after. Those small, minute changes that happen over time, we as Christians are not denying. But the evolution that teaches that we came from monkeys, that dinosaurs transformed into birds, and that these catastrophic changes are happening that we have zero evidence for, those things, that evolution, we as Christians say, that's foolishness. Coming from a pile of soup, as Stuart is saying here, yeah, that's foolishness. That's not what that's not what humans came from. We did not come from a water organism ball and then go from being a water creature to a frog to all of a sudden a human being. Those are things that we as Christians say, absolutely not. God created us in his image. But we do say, yes, there are things that change, evolution, adaptation, things that change with animals and their fur and their beaks and whatever else. Those things absolutely can and do change. We see evidence for that. So I thought it was very interesting that Logan makes this claim. This is one of those things where you're mercurying the water. You're making the water blurry, and you're making this statement that really doesn't have truth behind it. There's a little truth behind what Logan was saying, but it caused the waters to be stirred, and it caused Stuart and Cliffe to face a lot of backlash when this was posted. And so we need to make sure we have the proper context. And Logan knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows exactly what he's saying. And so Logan is just trying to stir the waters again in the Christian evangelical Protestant church.